Oh, that's nice of you to tell me. Thank you, Zoom.
Yes, well, that's new technology.
Yeah.
So we have a very special guest, as it's sort of Christmas edition. And I'd like to say hello to Joseph. How are you?
I'm fine. Good afternoon. It's very nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me along.
That's all right. It's lovely. It's good to catch up with you.
It's unusual. It's the first podcast I've done. So.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Yes.
So, yeah, usual thing. At the end, don't go, because I make it sound incredibly well edited by just switching off the record button. But then we can say goodbye properly. So
Yeah.
But anyway, so the traditional first question is, what do you do?
I'm a carpenter, mate. I do stuff with wood. I'm a handyman. I like to make things that people can sit on or sleep on or walk through. I mean, they're not all the same thing, of course.
Obviously not, because
they would be
suited
suited to
on
purpose,
something you actually fell through.
Yes, yeah. That would be a bit awkward. But I'm currently. Obviously, you know where I come from. It's a Roman province, and the Romans are well. There's no polite way of putting this. They're a bunch of bastards.
Yes.
And like my brand, or my part of the family, the of Nazareth, obviously come from Nazareth, and a couple of leagues down the road, the Romans got a bit leery with the people of Sephoria, and leveled the place. So, but on the plus side, whilst they killed everybody there, and they destroyed the whole place, there's a lot of building work going on there at the moment, which is a bit handy, really. So that's what I'm involved with, basically. A lot of work. Yeah. A couple of leagues down the road each morning, and off I go. Yeah.
That's good. So, is it this sort of thing that you just carry on from what your parents did? So,
yes. We've always been fairly handy in the of Nazareths, So my father was begat by a carpenter who was himself begat by a carpenter. So we've been in wood a lot. Wood has featured a lot in our lives, definitely.
And you've been begatting, obviously.
That is a bit of a Jewish thing, got to say. We do begat a lot in the Old Testament. There's a lot of begatting going on. We're a fairly healthy bunch in that department. Definitely. Some weird begatting has happened, to be fair.
Yes.
Some unusual begatting, but in general, the begatting has been fairly normal-ish.
Yes.
My case in point, and Mary's family, of course, is a little bit different. There's some weird begatting going on with that, but we can get into that later on, of course, I'm sure.
Yeah. I was trying to work out how we could talk about that sort of diplomatically. If you sort of
it's out there. It's out there. It's been known for a while. She says this Gabriel fella appears to her and said, you are going to have Jebus, the son of the big guy, the big hairy beardy fella. And
bit of a tall story.
I'm not entirely sure that this isn't just an excuse for an unwanted pregnancy that's got way out of hand, or because to be fair, whilst she was visited by this, visited by Gabriel, take that. We have open mindset here in the Holy Land. We believe that things happen for a reason. So, even if it wasn't the Archangel Gabriel, but just, I don't know, a plumber called Gabriel. You got to roll with it. You got to roll with it. Especially, a little bit after she ended up sort of uppus the duffus, as the Romans call it. I also had a visit actually. Unnamed angel fella just sort of appeared. Well, I say I was visited. I had a dream. So,
Okay.
I mean, we were working in a very moldy basement that day. Lots of sort of weird spores on the walls. So, I mean, it could have been a dream or it could have been microspore shroomy kind of stuff induced. But I was definitely visited in a dream by a bloke who said, I mean, he sort of fulfilled all of your traditional angel criteria, sort of glowing stuff and wings and long flowing robes and the whole schlemiel. And he said, don't worry, mate, we've got your back. It really is the Son of God. It's not Gabriel's. Don't worry. It is the big guy. I mean, that was, it was on my mind. It was on my mind. You want to be careful about these things. You don't want to be taken for a mug.
His trumpet, do you?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And I mean, he said, you always got wood. So, and I'm like, yeah, I do. I mean, I'm a carpenter after all. So it was a bit against your sort of
against the grain.
Basically, yes, exactly. Yes. I mean, to be fair. So yeah, so this fella, I mean, this fella definitely he came by and he said, "Look, don't worry, geezer, got your back. It is, his. So we will make sure that your card is marked for the rest of your entire existence. Just keep on doing stuff with wood, being nice to Mary, and hide Jesus away for apparently 30 years until he suddenly appears. I mean, there's a gap.
That could be quite tricky.
Well, yeah, well, apparently not. I mean, if you look at the accounts, we managed to do that quite safely. I mean, he does drop off the map.
There's no partying because I mean that's always the trouble, really.
Well, he was. I mean, unlike many impressions, Jesus was a very, very, very quiet teenager. I mean, occasionally we would have to sort of tell him to stop walking across lakes and ponds and stuff because that was just freaking people out. But I mean, generally speaking, he kept his stuff under a bush until obviously he got a message from on high to start really doing the stuff. So I mean, there was a hiatus between birth. All of these geezers are sort of pitching up bloody
I want to talk to you about that
and stuff, all that kind of malarkey, isn't it? Yeah. So I mean, so there was a hiatus between that and the really, really heavy stuff that he started doing and the accusations of religious terrorism that surfaced. But in this age of QAnon, anything is possible, really, isn't it? Anyway, so you have questions, sir. Go on.
Yeah, well, you were saying because I was going to say about you're saying about walking across water and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, did he do a lot of turning water into wine? Because that would be very useful.
No, the cheap little bastard kept that one quiet for a long bloody time.
That's a shame.
Yeah, you're telling me. I mean, I spent a fortune on bloody wine.
Yeah.
Little bugger could have done that every Friday evening. Boing, there you go, Dad. There's an amphora of wine. I said, but that's water. Yeah. But no. No, I suppose he wanted to maintain the holy stuff, but I mean, once a month even, but not even until the big bleeding party with the fishes and no, exactly, no. Mary's a very handy little baker actually. She's always got something in the oven. Oh, okay, that doesn't sound right.
No, it doesn't. Okay, fine, but okay. So we were saying about the I suppose in a way it's the sort of confirmation, must have been a confirmation to you early on when you started getting, you obviously had a bit of problem with the board and lodging situation. But once you got that sorted out, these visits,
I mean, actually on that point, it was so weird. We had the demand to go down to Bethlehem for the tax doodah. I mean, bloody hashtag big government, all right, So we toddled on down there, but on the way, I mean, I'd looked on hotels.com, I'd looked on booking.com, I'd done Airbnb, I'd done findmeamanger.com, not a bloody sign. It was. I mean, we were very, very fortunate the bloke actually had a really horrible, stinky old sort of stable for us to stay in. I mean, it was very kind of him, to put us and a pregnant woman in a bar, in a sty, essentially. I thought that was really, from the depth of his heart, I thought that was a very generous offer. Ish.
Ish.
But I mean, we had somewhere.
Yeah. So that was good. So what was the first inkling that something extraordinary was about to happen?
I mean, the angels pitching up early on in the pregnant. I mean, that was quite a foretelling.
Yeah, but I mean, that's like confirmation now.
And well, I mean, that was. Did you actually know? I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but in our family, or Mary's family particularly, she wasn't the first one to have this kind of miraculous doodah.
Oh, okay.
Because her cousin Elizabeth and her husband Zechariah, they were trying 4 years to have a child. I mean, they were old and long in the tooth, but they did something that they had another sort of holy roller came along and said, "You are blessed. You are going to." And by this time, I mean, Elizabeth was knocking on. And they was like, "Well, thank you very much, but bleeding hellfire, you could have done this a bit earlier, couldn't you?" Yeah, but anyway, they said, "You see, this was the first
older parent."
Yeah, exactly. But this was one of the first foretellings, you see, because, and we do like a good foretelling in the Holy Land, but because at the time, the child that was going to be born, they said, was going to have a feature in the future of the one to come. So, although he wasn't the one, we knew there was something coming down the pipe at some point. We didn't know it was going to be Mary and I, of course, but you play the cards you're dealt, really, don't you? So
you do.
So yeah, I mean, so it wasn't entirely unexpected that something was going to happen, but we just didn't know that we were going to be the chosen ones in that respect. But yeah, so yeah, you were saying what was, I mean, various things. I mean, having people like shepherds turning up. I mean, it wasn't an entire surprise that there were sheep coming into what was a stable, but three of them at the same time, with a lot of and their kind of venerating way that they were there was quite a shocker. But I mean, it was nice. I mean, they bought some nice woolly stuff for the little one to wear, and a nice rug for Mary, because it can. I mean, people think the Holy Land is always hot. It's a fib. It can get bleeding cold.
Night.
It can get bleeding cold. Yeah. We have snow and everything. You can go skiing up in the well, as long as you're not getting attacked by people, but you can go skiing in the Holy Land and a bit upstate in Lebanon as well. Lovely places. Yeah. Anyway, so we had that, and then I mean, a fairly significant sort of sign that something major was going down. I mean, the shepherds were significant. But a bloody great big star suddenly appearing over the bloody place and shining down. I mean, we were trying to get some bloody sleep. She was knackered. She'd just given birth. The bloody thing comes over, shining. We're like, this is not entirely normal.
No.
I mean, this is in the ages before you would expect to have sort of police helicopters flying around. You know, that feels a bit like that, like Jesus Christ. And we hadn't invented UFOs by that point. So we didn't do aliens. We're just dealing with religion at this point. But yeah, so this bloody light comes on, and then in come these, I mean, they call them wise men, but I mean, I don't know how wise you are to follow a star, but anyway, you know, they reckon it was a big deal. But the presents were, I don't know, interesting. I mean, gold is nice, incense is lovely. I mean, it's nice to especially. I mean, we burnt that stuff pretty soon. I mean, we were in a flipping stable, you know. So it's a bit. I mean, it is a bit ripe, you know. And so we set off the incense, and then this other bloke came up and said, "Here's some myrrh." I still haven't worked out what the bloody hell myrrh is. You know, I mean, I can't even find it on Wikipedia.
No, I think it's to do with dying, isn't it? Then they put
probably.
myrrh with dead bodies or something.
I mean, you
Which
could be
isn't a
right.
good sign, really,
it's
for a
it's a bit of a
baby,
grim,
is
it's
it?
a bit of a grim angle to put on it, isn't it? Here
Yeah,
you
it
are,
is,
yeah.
really.
Here you are, newborn savior of humanity. Here's the thing to do with death. Oh, okay. I mean, you guess that at some point, being a savior of humanity is going to involve some kind of sacrificial bollocks, but it's a bit early, like the night of your birth.
Mm. It is a
Anyway,
little bit.
it
Yeah,
is.
yeah. I was just wondering if you managed to sort of sell any of that stuff. I mean, because I mean, what are you gonna do with that, really? Because
Well,
if you know,
no, it's a fair point. We did look into merchandising options, and I mean, we do have rumper stickers for your camels. They're like Jesus is born, and that kind of stuff. So we have got a range of that sort of thing going on. But I mean, to be honest, we were a bit gobsmacked by the whole thing. So merchandising didn't really come into it until later on, when he was starting to do his walking on water act more publicly. That was when we decided to sort of start selling inflatable sandals and stuff, because people wanted to try it for themselves. I mean, to sort of no, not entirely successful ends, but I mean, we got through quite a few before the health and safety agency got onto us about that. Sort of, I mean, unintentional drowning fans is not a good
No.
look for the brand, basically.
no. But it looks like you were able to sort of make a profit.
Well, yeah, we did, until it all, you know, the final story. It all kind of caught up with us, and then it's all got a bit out of hand after that. I mean, once these Romans really got hold of it themselves, and they took it back. I mean, typical, isn't it? I mean, it's like we invent it, they take it over.
Yeah,
bloody typical.
Sort of rebranding.
Yeah, totally.
I've always found that quite interesting, this sort of rebranding of the story, because I mean, it happens very early on, doesn't it? Really?
Oh, it does. Yeah.
Because even, I mean, because obviously after that event, it wasn't long before you had this extraordinary uprising in Jerusalem and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that must have been a horrendous period of time.
Well, I mean, that's a bit after my time, but I mean, it did get a bit, it got a bit leery for a while, but by that stage, the whole sort of Jesus brand was off and running, and I mean,
because it's very interesting. It's very interesting because the way that was sort of written up historically.
Yeah.
It was written in such a way that it really made the Romans come out really like they'd done no wrong. And I've always been fascinated by the fact that they must have been in on this right at the very beginning.
Well, I mean, that is that. I mean, you can't get away from the craftiness of the whole thing. That it was the Romans that sort of essentially, not to put too fine a point, nailed him up. And yet somehow later it becomes known as the Church of Rome.
Yes, that's what I mean. It's quite extraordinary.
That's quite clever. But again, I mean, that you're back to your sort of that traditional trope that sort of that history is written by the victors.
Yes,
and I am. That's. I mean, it is significant that in the Dead Sea Scrolls there are vast quantities that are not seen as canon or on brand, but that's sort of what is officially the story. Is often written, or is the people deciding that were, strangely enough, very strongly associated with Rome, which does give you the feeling that perhaps there's a little bit of a PR job being done on this. But I mean, as somebody that was there, I mean, unfortunately, I did pop my clogs before the final thing went haywire. I'm only getting this retrospectively, obviously up in heaven from later arrivals up here. But yeah, I mean, this was something we were humble people. This wasn't supposed to be turned into a multi-bajillion dollar lira euro thing. This was about actually, generally speaking, not being a dick to other people.
Yes.
And
Unfortunately, it has turned into an excuse to be
yes,
proverbial dick to
there is
everybody.
an awful lot of dickery that is unleashed by people claiming that you shouldn't be a dick, but what they are is a dick a lot of the time, and that's a little bit sort of. I mean, that's not entirely on brand as far as we are concerned in the
No.
Jesus family. The
No.
of Nazareths, we are not happy with the way that kind of once we lost the franchising deals to the larger religions and to the church over in Constantinople and the church in Rome, and then they started shattering off and splintering into all sorts of other little versions, and then you got sort of weird people pitching up in North America who say that an angel called Moroni told him where some golden plates were, and then you got people who've got magic underwear out in Utah, and you're just realizing it's all got a bit out of hand, really.
Yes, because that's quite interesting, because traditionally angels from the Jewish tradition, and then obviously because of that it feeds itself into everything, they mostly finish with the name with L on the end. You know,
yes,
Michael or Michael, and
yes,
Raphael, and Uriel, and all the rest. But then you end up with an angel in North America that doesn't.
No,
that seems a bit weird to me.
I mean, it is entirely
Maloney.
Moroni, yes,
Moroni.
Yes. Moroni, yes. Or I mean, that is how it is pronounced by them. But I mean, there is, to my mind, a slight irony to the fact that actually it is spelt moroni. So there is this. I mean, the only thing missing from the end is the C to make it a moronic angel. But I would not want to denigrate a sincerely held belief by a guy who was trying to basically impose his will upon everyone around him. But that's neither here nor there. If you want to, let's face it, as we have seen in repeated occasions, if you want to set up your own religion, you can do that. But the big guy, I mean, the big guy is essentially the big gal, or the big elephant, the big tree, the big whatever you as your religion. He is that. It is that thing. The fundamental thing is that if the thing that you are worshipping has the basic tenet of be nice, you should. The only problem is that everybody and his wife, myself excluded, seems to then decide that if your version of that thing, which is fundamentally the same thing, is different from somebody else's and you think it is superior, that gives you a right to oppress them or fight them or just be
nasty.
Yeah. And that only goes to prove that all of these people didn't listen to a bloody word my son said.
No.
Not a single bloody word.
No.
And I mean, to be honest, if you want to really look at this, look at my case. I've seen, I am actually looked, I'm registered as the legal father of Jesus Christ. This is how I am referred to in various forms. So Jesus is I am his legal father, but we all know that isn't true. I mean, legality is nothing here. His father was, of course, the big guy, the big kahuna. So one would imagine that if the big kahuna's kid has got something to say, and he says essentially most of the time, all of his messages are, don't be an asshole. the fact that every single major religion, or even minor religion, or every single little tiny church that sets up in a bloody shopping mall in Arizona seems to go around saying, "Oh yeah, but we've been chosen, but we hate everyone else, and unless you join us, you are all going to burn in hell." Deary me, they've missed the bloody message.
Yeah. Now, I think the other thing is this sort of context thing.
Yes,
because obviously, when you were when your son was born, you were under the sort of rule of the Romans, although
yes,
the Romans seemed to farm out the actual sort of administration to
yes,
sort of hired lackeys.
basically, yeah.
So they don't really have to dirty their hands too much, but they do occasionally have to come in and police things when things get out of hand.
Yes,
but there are obviously a few exceptions, but generally speaking, we live in a place now and a time that's nowhere near as troubled as living under Roman occupation. I don't know. I would say, mind you, if it wasn't Romans, it would be somebody else, wouldn't it? It'd be the Assyrians or the
pretty much. I mean, everyone was trying to stamp on everyone else and always has done. Really, let's be fair.
Yes, and particularly where you live.
Oh,
yeah.
That's
for some reason everybody wants to live where you live, which always puzzled me.
Buggered if I know, but yeah, I mean, it seems to be that it was decided that this was the bit of real estate that absolutely everybody wanted. Can't work out why. I mean, we do have some nice grapes here, but frankly, they grow better wine in North Africa. But anyway.
Yeah, again, it comes back to you mentioned the sort of the Mormon idea that that these golden bars with messages on or whatever, golden tablets, were found. I mean, there is a sort of an element of that, isn't there, where you are, where everybody sort of everybody's got a little bit of holy ground, Abraham's thing. So therefore, and again, we've got a little bit of angel bothering going on in those stories as well.
Of course.
So you end up with, the holy mount or sacred rock.
Yes, exactly.
And of course that still goes back to the idea of even like Solomon's temple and everything. So there is something about that bit of land.
Yes.
I don't know what that is. I don't know. You know what that's about? Why everybody sort of thinks that you've got to have a holy rock or something there.
Oh, but yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, we had the accusations with, okay, so why should we take your word for it when this is the Son of God and that you're the chosen ones? But I mean, when he first sort of accidentally crawled out across the fish pond, people went, "Oh, okay, maybe you got a point there." So we kept that one quiet because we didn't want a big fuss about it. But yeah, I mean, there is this very bizarre thing that it does the places, why places need to be particularly or more significantly holy than some other place. It isn't. I don't know what the logic behind that is. I think it's got to do with things that have apparently occurred there that make a place holy. I mean, if you look at the case in Britain, for instance, with pagan religions, there are lots of places that are perceived to be more holy than others, and that could be just as literally a spring or a tree or something.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that makes sense that you should venerate things that are particularly beautiful, but that's also to do with nature, and I think that's one of the things that fundamentally religion was always about, or should have been about, and that is to make sure that we respect the environment in which we live and we live in harmony with it.
Yeah, but the thing that I find is really intriguing about the Middle East is that you've got more than one type of thinking,
Yes.
finding holy places in the same place. We don't sort of have that so much here, because you could look at something and go, oh yeah, this is a sacred spring. And obviously this sacred spring was a sacred spring before the Romans thought it was a sacred spring.
But I mean, the issue we've got in the Middle East, you see, is they're all fundamentally Abrahamic religions, and they're all fundamentally basically stuck around the principle that your interpretation of who is or isn't a prophet, and whether the Messiah has come or not, and whether the Messiah that has come is actually just a prophet and not the Messiah, it's a splintering essentially of the same bunch of people fighting over the same sort of sacred stuff, which is why you've got all of these different, essentially, I mean, they are separate religions, but they all have their genesis, no pun intended, in the same.
That was a good.
It was a good one, yes. They all have the genesis in the same fundamental pantheon, or not even pantheon, but the same root, and that is why everyone's sort of stomping over the same bit of ground, arguing over who. It's as if you had to go back to our Mormon thing. It would be if the tree at which Adams claimed to be Moroni pointed at the ground and said, if there are sects that broke off, which may well happen, it's a young religion, give it time, that say that's actually, there's a different interpretation of it. We believe in I mean, there are already fundamentalist versions of Mormonism, and then more secular versions of it over the years, and that's 150 years old, 200 years old. That's already happening. And then they will have a fight, and then someone will say, no, but this tree is actually more our personal version of this story. And that's exactly what's happening with the rock in Jerusalem and the various places that you have in the Holy Land, where people are saying that this is specifically something that is to do with our religion. It's like, no, it's all connected, and just stop being arses about it. Why can't you just be nice?
Yeah, it's complicated, isn't it?
It is. It is, but I mean, it's a fundamental expression of the human condition. We will hopelessly overcomplicate the simplest things just for our own amusement, it seems.
Yes. So going back to your son, just Jesus,
stepson.
When you realised, or maybe you didn't realise until it was already happening, that he, as you said, there was sort of sacrificial aspect.
Yeah.
That must have been terribly upsetting. I'm trying to be a bit delicate here. To realise that, did he sort of clear off one day and start hanging out with a bunch of other people, and then you thought, oh my goodness, what's going on here? And that led to something else, you know what I mean?
Well, there was a certain sense of inevitability about that, I mean, he was a quiet teenager. I think he did his sort of teenage rebellion a bit later in life. But I mean, he was essentially, I mean, he was a good kid. I mean, he wasn't about violence, and he wasn't about anything other than actually it would be really rather good if we didn't do a lot of the shit that we do to each other. Pardon my very vernacular use of the language there. But he was one for you're talking, I suppose, what you're trying to get at is the whole sacrificial lamb stuff, and the realization that
it was going to happen.
Something somewhere is going to go down that's going to be pretty horrible or pretty significant. But again, you've got to remember, we were living in times when crucifixions were 10 a penny. So
yes,
I mean, it was not unusual for people to be given hideous ends. And of course, were it possible for him not to have had such a hideous end, we would have all preferred that. But I also think that's, to a degree, part and parcel of the significance, I guess, for a lot of people.
Yes, I think so. And I mean, even obviously the whole idea of crucifixion, from what we've managed to understand, obviously, because we're a long way away from this period
Yes.
of time.
Yes, we are, thankfully.
Me personally, but
Yeah.
it was something that was certainly, if there was some political treatment, I can't use the word treason because that didn't exist as a thing. But if you were doing something against the state, then you were definitely going to be crucified.
Absolutely.
And obviously, to be viewed as being an enemy of the state was a very, very strange way of looking at what he was doing.
Basically, he was a threat. I mean, he was.
He wasn't just framed, in your opinion.
Well, maybe. I mean, he was a. I mean, what you're saying, was he a patsy? I suppose. Not really, because actually he was the Romans. Let's face it, were not a nice bunch of people.
No.
They did venerate violence an awful lot. They did love their public displays of violence enormously. They were outrageous misogynists, and they basically hated anyone that wasn't. I mean, they were very clever. You were pointing to one of the reasons why it was actually sort of they kind of distanced themselves as the Roman Empire from what happened to Jesus. On the basis that it was the local governors that basically made the decisions to crucify him. But those local governors would not have been there were it not for them. So they often came in, and if you look at the Roman pantheon of gods, one of the reasons why they were very good at settling is that they also very often absorbed the local traditions into whichever province they had conquered.
Yes, I was going to say something about that, because I think
that happens a lot. But the point was that they, and I mean, ultimately that's what they also did with Christianity. They absorbed that, and you then ended up with the Holy Roman Empire, which is basically just sort of a kind of capitalist takeover of a concept, if ever there was one. But the basis of it is really no. I mean, he was a threat because he took the power of control, the control of the mind, the control of the heart, away from the empire, away from the power structures, and empower people to think that actually perhaps it was actually a good idea to be nice to each other for a shame.
Do you think that was also true, that he took the power away ultimately from the Hebrew people?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
It
is the established
Gentiles,
religion.
that's the word.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the established religion. Obviously, you had the Jewish religion was very strong, and they felt threatened by the fact that there was someone walking. I mean, they were anticipating a Messiah. What they didn't anticipate was the Messiah actually bloody turning up.
Yes, or being the character that he was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they anticipated, I think, a slightly possibly more vengeful or more aggressive version of it. Instead, you had this hippie walking around saying, actually, all this sort of stuff that we've been doing for thousands of years to each other and killing each other and pillars of salt. I mean, Dad was a bit angry about stuff. He's now sent me to say, all right, let's wipe the slate clean, start fresh, with the whole being nice to each other gig again. And the people that liked the pillars of salt and the fire and brimstone and stuff tended to sort of rail against that a bit. And the interpretations
of people that without a little bit of some sort of cosmic judgment, can you? It's very difficult to organize anything unless you can say, well, look, we've got whatever.
Exactly. I mean, you want something. You want some as they say, you want some powder in your gun to make that work. And having somebody say that actually that's not important is a bit
Yes.
tricky.
It is incredibly
For people.
incredibly so.
Yeah.
So, as the tradition of Christmas, then, I think. Do you think it's amazing that after all this time that we're still doing that? Because I reflect on this occasion, and it goes through cycles, obviously, and you must have seen it on I that it goes from being very spiritually orientated to becoming very commercial, and then flips out, and you're getting an element of the spirituality bit coming back again. But do you think are you still surprised that it has some sort of gravitas to it? That's the story, because as you're involved in it with the wise men.
I understand. No, I mean, I think honestly, no, because one of the things, we are a bizarre species, humans. We are very, very weird. We are very, very good at shoving sticks into the spokes of our own bicycles. And then on the other hand, there is still a lot of fundamentally, basically good values in a lot of people. And I think what for me is nice about Christmas, whether it's the terribly commercial version, I think for most people, it's still, there are a lot of people for whom it's very hard to be to Christmas. There are lonely people. There are people that are lost and find this time of year very hard. But that's when you find organizations, I know of groups where I am currently, who spend a lot of time reaching out to people at this time of year, because they appreciate. There are some people who don't find this a fun time, but they come together just in friendship and just as an expression of humanity. So I think that it's not a surprise that we do this. I think we've done this way before my stepson became into the picture. We were doing this kind of stuff at this time of year. A lot of the rites around this, the burning of the Yule logs, all of this kind of stuff have traditions that go way beyond what we're talking about, and it's all to do with the changing of the year and the changing of times, stepping into the new. So I think it's deeply seated within us as a species to go, this is something we need to mark, if not celebrate, certainly venerate in some way, shape, or form.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm not surprised, but I think that the circumstances in your own life and in your own groupings, sort of your societal, community, family, personal, will all have an impact on how you react at this time of year. What frustrates me, and I always think about this, is like, Jesus, I don't mean to take my son's name in vain, but why do we have to focus on this once a year? Wouldn't it be really nice if we didn't save up all of the niceness for a few weeks around this time of year and then act like plonkers for the rest of the time? Imagine if we just, instead of putting everything intensely into these few weeks, we sort of go, okay, I'll be less of a dick for the whole of the year. How about that? And it seems like we remind ourselves once a year, be nice. Isn't that lovely? Okay, that's good. I've done that for now. I've done that for this cycle. Now I'm going to be an asshole at various points in the until I remember in November of next year that, oh yeah, isn't it lovely, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's wonderful, Joseph. Thank you ever so much for your time. It's really, really good. And you'll have to thank Matt also for allowing you to use the microphone.
I will do that. I will make sure.
Helping you sort that out, because
I'll get Jesus to turn a couple of amphoras of water into wine for him. He does do requests occasionally.
Well, that's brilliant.
It's that time of year. It's that time of the year.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And as I say, you did very well to deal with all the technology and all the rest of it.
You're very
after
kind.
such a long time.
It is amazing. It is amazing. But let's hope that this helps get the message out there.
Yes,
whatever
yes.
the message is.
So, and I hope that you have a nice time on your return.
Yes, thank you.
As I say, don't know what to say really. I was going to say send my regards to
the family.
The family.
I will do that, and all the best to yours as well.
Thank you very much indeed. That's very
Thank
kind.
you.
See you.
See ya.